Hi there, Miss Nicole here. Today we're going to be reading Chicken Soup by Heart, written by Esther Hershenhorn, illustrated by Roseanne Litzinger. Read with permission from Simon & Schuster Books. Here it is, from start to finish, how such a nice boy chick saved the chicken soup queen. It was a very nice Sunday in the middle of spring, in the middle of breakfast, in the middle of the morning. Rudy Dinkins heard his mama say that Rudy's sitter, Mrs. Giddle, had the flu. Rudy ran down the hallway to Mrs. Giddle's apartment. He heard 13 achooes before he ever knocked. "It's me," Rudy shouted. "Mama says you're sick." Mrs. Giddle sneezed again, then blew her nose twice. She whispered through the door, "Oi, you can't come in, Rudy." Rudy Dinkins had some very big worries now. So big, in fact, he had to sit down to think about them. What if it was me who made Mrs. Giddle sick, he asked. Only last week he'd had a Rudy Dinkins chest cold. Who will snug-a-bug her like she snug-a-bugged me? Who will cook her chicken soup and make her good as new? There was also some supposing as to when she'd be all better. Mrs. Giddle babysat him Mondays after school. Rudy knocked again. "Don't worry," he said. "I'm cooking you chicken soup. You'll be good as new tonight." In a minute, Rudy stood in the middle of his kitchen. This was no small task, cooking Mrs. Giddle chicken soup. Mrs. Giddle was the chicken soup queen. She deserved the very best, namely soup the way she cooked it. Lucky thing, after all his chest colds, Rudy knew her recipe, give or take an ingredient. Another lucky thing, he knew Mrs. Giddle's chicken soup secret. She stirred in very nice stories about her soon-to-be soup eaters. Rudy grabbed his mama, and his mama grabbed a soup pot. Together they filled it so high with water. Into the pot went some chicken and a chicken wing, plus a very nice wishbone Rudy'd saved for Mrs. Giddle. Of course, leave it to him to sneak in a Rudy Dinkins surprise. Guess who knew his sitter liked her soup a little sweet? This is the first Mrs. Giddle story Rudy stirred in, his mama nearby, just in case her boy check spilled. It was all about the time, maybe 3 months back, when he happened to have a Rudy Dinkins chest cold. Mrs. Giddle babysat him, and like always, made him chicken soup. It was number day at school, though. He was very sad to miss it, so while the soup cooked, they practiced counting like accountants. They counted soup spoons and soup nuts and cousins and picture frames, then love seat flowers and cowboys on his quilt. Next, chin hairs and liver spots and beauty marks and freckles. Every 10 numbers, they would share a candy kiss. When they were done, they counted almost to 1,000. Mrs. Giddle told him, "You're a regular genius." Which was certainly the truth. Only such a smart boy chick could shoo Mrs. Giddle's flu bug. Rudy brought his chest cold cream to Mrs. Giddle's door. "It's me," Rudy shouted. He knocked again. "How are you?" Mrs. Giddle oyed. "Don't ask, Rudy." So in less than a minute, Rudy was back in the middle of his kitchen cooking Mrs. Giddle chicken soup. Rudy added carrots and a little bit of celery chopped by his mama into very nice chunks. And leave it to him to sneak in another Rudy surprise. Guess who knew his sitter liked her soup a little sweet? This is the second Mrs. Giddle story Rudy stirred in. It was all about the time he stopped by Mrs. Giddle's apartment to give her a look at his brand new wagon. It was Mrs. Giddle's card game day. Her fingers hurt like crazy. Mrs. Giddle asked him could he stay and give a help. So Rudy helped shuffle, and Rudy helped deal, and Rudy picked a card whenever Mrs. Gittle's turn came. The two of them would whisper, rearranging their cards. Rudy's job was shouting, "Gin, we win!" Every jelly bean in the candy dish was Rudy's. Mrs. Gittle told him they should bottle you like medicine, which was also the truth. Only such a helpful boy would know which pocket had his cough drops. Rudy wrapped up two to bring to Mrs. Gittle's door. "It's me," Rudy shouted. He knocked again. "How are you?" Mrs. Gittle eyed. "I'm too sick to oi." It took 20 seconds tops for Rudy to get back to the middle of his kitchen to finish making chicken soup. Rudy held his nose while his mama peeled an onion and dropped nice chunks for Rudy to add. Leave it to him to sneak in one last surprise. Guess who knew his sitter liked her soup a little sweet? This is the last Mrs. Gittle story Rudy stirred in. It's all about a time when Rudy's mama worked a Saturday and Mrs. Gittle's Arthur moved too far away to visit. Rudy and Mrs. Gittle couldn't make a smile no how, so they walked up the avenue to have themselves a good time. They watched a parade and posed for pictures in a picture booth, and Mrs. Gittle told him, "You're movie star handsome." Then they stopped and had a bite and schmoozed with Mrs. Gittle's girlfriends, and Rudy told Mrs. Gittle, "You should have your own talk show." Later, they were so pooped that they had to rest their tootsies. Mrs. Gittle hugged him. "We're some very good friends." Truer words a person ever spoke. Right then, Rudy grabbed those pictures. Mama loaded up his wagon, and he wheeled his chicken soup to Mrs. Gittle's door. "It's me," he shouted. He knocked, knocked, knocked. "I made you chicken soup with 3 Mrs. Gittle stories. Mama said you should cook it up hot. How are you anyway?" "You don't want to know." Well, what a person wouldn't want to know is how Rudy slept that night. He had such crazy nightmares in the middle of his head. All a person needs to know is how Rudy woke up with a hurt in his middle and a knock at the door. Rudy gave a listen. "Where's our favorite boy check?" Rudy gave a peek. "Mrs. Gittle," he shouted, "my chicken soup worked." "You knew my recipe by heart, plus leave it to you to make it Rudy Dinkin sweet." "Oh," Rudy moaned. Oh. "Oi," said Mrs. Gittle, "that's a Rudy Dinkin's tummy ache." So Mrs. Gittle babysat him and snug-a-bugged him tight, and in the middle of the morning fixed him a seltzer. They played a little cards, and they talked and looked at pictures. Then they made chicken soup to have for supper later. The two of them together stirred in such a nice story. "Here it is," she said, "from start to finish. How such a nice boy chick saved the chicken soup queen." That was Chicken Soup by Heart, written by Esther Hershenhorn, illustrated by Roseanne Litzinger.